Connecting.
It says it's streaming with the YouTube.
Yep, we are now streaming live.
Okay, we ready?
Yep.
All right, the city commission meeting is called to order. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Here.
Dr. Estron,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill, Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here. Let us join in invocation. Our God, we continue to worry for our citizens in this time of illness. We hope that we are able to hold down the number of people who get sick, and especially those who have serious effects from it. And we are concerned for our city because this is a time of struggling to get through this shortage of funds and difficulties in the community because of the virus. Help us to make good decisions for the people of Springfield today. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United States of America.
and to the republic
For
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estron,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Clerk will proceed with first readings by title only.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Chemical Services Incorporated for the purchase of liquid ferric sulfate, 60%, for a period of 1 year with an option to renew for 2 additional 1-year periods for an amount not to exceed $144,450.
Are there any questions or comments from commission?
I'd just be curious how we make use of this product. What's it used for?
Yes, I'm calling Chris Moore up now, and he can provide additional information on that.
Commissioners, ferric sulfate is a secondary coagulant. It is used we have a lime softening plant. The lime is the first step of the process, and then this is added to take any additional lime particles out.
So it's used in our water department?
It's water treatment plant process, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, this will be scheduled for our next meeting. Clerk will proceed with second readings.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with the Board of Clark County Commissioners for communication and dispatch services.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move that the memorandum of understanding presented as the first reading on June 30th be amended for second reading as written and distributed for today's agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners?
Yes. I just want to say that I know our city manager has worked really hard to get to where this is. And I know some of our staff, our dispatchers are wondering why we're still doing this. But I'm going to liken the MOU to a baseball game. And that once you hit the ball, you have to run and touch each base separately. Otherwise, you can't get the home run. So as the memorandum of understanding is written and amended today, this is first base. And my concern first is for our staff and our safety of our fire, police, and our citizens. And I'm going to vote yes for this because this is first base. This is not a yes for everything, but this is a yes because it's first base.
Okay, at this point, we're only discussing the amendment.
That's
clear.
Yeah, point of order. I want to make sure I understand. We're going to vote first on the amendment, and then we'll come back and vote a second time
Correct.
on the
On the-
original. As
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the amendment? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes. Now the motion amended is before us.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now, are there questions or comments from the commission?
I would like to commend Brian, Mr. Heck, Jennifer Hutchins from the county, Commissioner Flax Wilt, and also Sheriff Burchett. We had a difficult discussion, and they showed the flexibility that was needed to move this forward. I think as a result of this, we will have an operation that will operate more efficiently and more effectively for all the people of Clark County, including Springfield. It's going to save us about $250,000 a year. And that's money that we can use elsewhere or in this time of pandemic. It is money we can avoid spending and avoid having to make additional cuts in that amount. So I will obviously support this. I'm going to commend everybody who was involved in it for showing the needed flexibility and understanding that this is for the better, greater good. And it has my support. Thank you.
Mr. Wu, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Warren. Actually, Joyce, I like your analogy. I'm missing baseball, so I'm going to go with it. And then also, I agree with Dr. E that there's been a lot of hard work on both sides. I'm well aware this is like 100 step ones, but this is a huge step for us to move to the next place to see that we can get if indeed everybody is talking the way we perceive they're talking at this point from all sides, that we're going to get the best we can for our staff. This is a decision that is fiscally responsible, and this is a decision that has to be made. I think I sent a letter to everybody on the screen, but this has to be made from a very high view and an overall picture. Some of the best decisions and can be made. Some of the best decisions that need to be made are decisions that may not, that may affect generations to come. I know everybody knows that. So this is one of those decisions where in the beginning of it, if this is successful, it may not look so pretty, but I think in the long run, this is going to be the safest we can say one of the safest decisions we can make for 911 for our citizens. There's over 7,000 911 calls that are transferred between two dispatch centers. That's one thing that will go away. So there's not just fiscally responsible decision, there is a safety decision involved. And if we can get the right and fair, equitable transfer over of our staff members with the county as they come together, this is going to be a win-win for all parties. I also want to commend Chris Clark with the County Dispatch Center and Paul Hicks, who have been intimately involved, Paul Hicks with the city, but intimately involved as well as several of our city dispatchers who have passionately sent emails. And also I've had a couple of conversations with individual dispatchers that I'm listening to, just like everybody else is up here. But this is an important decision.
I understand the image that Joyce gave, except one time I hit a triple and trying to turn it into a home run, got thrown out of home plate. So then this
Shouldn't have ran more.
there's 3 bases instead of 4, thank goodness. I must say I still have doubts, and I look forward to, and this is just the first step of 3. So hopefully those doubts can be taken care of in the upcoming decisions. And by the time we get to the 3rd vote, which will be the one that decides the matter, I will be able to support it. But at this point, I still have some doubts about how we're going to work this out cooperatively. I think our people do, in many ways, the most difficult and complicated part of this job, and they're very good at it. And I think I take very seriously the fact that if they are not treated fairly and we lose them, we will lose some real skilled people that are important to our police and firefighters. So I still have to be convinced completely, but I'm willing to vote for this first step in the process. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Vote.
Mayor Copeland, I do have a citizen comment.
Oh, that's right. Okay, citizen comment. Jill will read that.
This letter is dated July 28th, 2020, and it comes from Andrew Rigsby, the president of the Springfield Professional Firefighters Local 333. Regarding statement on combined dispatched MOU. Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, my name is Andrew Rigsby. I live at 2101 Harshman Boulevard. I am the president of the Springfield Professional Firefighters Local 333, and I represent the men and women of the Springfield Fire Rescue Division. I am making this statement to urge you to reject the revised proposed MOU. Rejecting this MOU is not a rejection of the concept of combining dispatch. Rejection of it is, however, a statement that is consistent with the statements you all made at the last City Commission meeting where this topic came up. The revisions made in this version of the MOU make no measurable changes to the treatment of our dispatchers, allowing them to participate in a shift selection process while cutting their service time by a third, which is the measure used to bid on the shifts, means that they will be selecting their shifts for the next year at a severe disadvantage compared to the people they will be working with. Having dispatchers with less than 9 years of service able to be disciplined or terminated without showing just cause makes them equivalent to brand new employees. How is having to show just cause for an action wrong, particularly in an employee who has up to 9 years of service? Why specifically block them from using the grievance process that any Clark County Sheriff's Communications Center dispatcher or supervisor with more than 1 year of service can use? I will grant the MOU has improved from its very beginning, and I'm hopeful that you will resolve these issues. I know that some of you are very eager to move forward with the process and see approval of this MOU as a stepping stone to the next part of the process. I don't argue that there are many parts to the process of combining the two dispatch centers, but rushing any one aspect may ruin the entire process. Moving forward with a flaw sets the system up for failure. We will also have concerns about the service we will get when we no longer have our own dispatch center. Moving the dispatch center outside of our span of control cannot make the system safer. In fact, several of my members also work in the county as supervisors for various agencies, and they have cited concerns about the lack of communication and responsiveness from the Clark County Sheriff's Office Communications Center leadership. But these are issues which you will deal with as you move to later stages of the negotiation process, and I have been and will continue to send those issues forward to the city manager. I believe that part of the reason that you wish to move forward with this MOU and get to the next stages in the process is to demonstrate to the citizens that you're committed to saving money. I would like you to realize that we already demonstrate fiscal thrift every day. Our citizens get more bang for the buck than any city in Ohio. All our employees, from the service center to the personnel at City Hall, do more with less every day. Our fire division has a run volume that far exceeds any other similarly sized city that I know of, and we do it with around the same or less resources. I believe our city's employees, including our police and dispatch, do the same thing, which shows a depth of fiscal responsibility that should satisfy anyone. In closing, we, the public safety providers, look to you, our commission, to protect us as we protect the citizens of our great city. We urge you to reject this MOU and go back to the table. Fix these issues, then move forward. Thank you for your time and consideration. Respectfully, Andrew Rigsby, President, Springfield Professional Firefighters.
I'd like to make a comment, Warren.
Yes.
I want to thank Andy for his leadership. I do believe he is a good representative for the women and men of our safety forces, all of them, to be honest. back in the 70s, I was raised underneath a police fire scanner. My dad loved to listen to them, so there was one above my crib probably before I can ever remember. And Jim Saunders was a fireman that always called the 911. He called the fires. His voice was, to me, it was something I remember forever, probably because it was so early. But he was a firefighter dispatching firemen. And there was a point in time where a city had to make a decision that it was no longer effective for the city's decision to have just firemen making these calls, making this dispatch. It was a very difficult decision to make, and it was absolutely not popular. And I'm sure there's still some in the department who have had years that still wish it was just the firemen making this call because they know the apparatus, they understand the scene. I understand that. But this is, again, another step that cities are making. There is technology coming at cities like a slow barge with a lot of information that we are not fully equipped to handle and fully equipped in a way that will handle it efficiently and safely. I don't have the answer or completely understand that. I know that those things are happening. And if we don't make decisions for the future now, then we're going to be behind. And then we may not be as safe for our citizens if we did, unless we did make this effort to consolidate, to merge, to contract for services. So that's my thoughts on that. This is, I appreciate it, Andy. I don't ever expect the union president of any union that represents to fully agree with the decision we're going to make up here, to fully agree with it. The goal is to get as close to the agreement as possible. The goal is to make it as less painful as possible, in my opinion. The most we can do for our city that is palatable, the most we can do for our dispatchers is to give them the most fair and equal treatment we can. And that's what we're going for. And that's what this MOU takes us just past first base. Right, Joyce? So,
Right.
Thank you.
And also, I want to piggyback on Commissioner Rue. You know, we're all walking around with these little miniature computers. I mean, on your arm with the smartwatch, your cell phone. So, I mean, I'm looking at this from a safety benefit, because I can remember years ago when my husband passed out in the truck and we were out in the county. I look back on that and I see that when the dispatcher asked me to pull over when I was on Cravel Road, I was like trying to get the fastest, the best service for my husband, because this is a matter of life and death. And I look back in the back of my mind, there was a little bit of mistrust that the county would not get there fast enough. So that's why I proceeded to drive on. As it was, you know what? They were right on time. The sheriff met me, the Springfield Township was right behind him. But in the back of my mind, there was that mistrust. And I don't want any of our citizens in the city of Springfield or Clark County to have a mistrust for our dispatchers and our EMS services. So, I mean, that's my concern here. But the number one concern is for our dispatchers, getting the best that we can get for them.
I agree with both of the comments that have been made, and I still want to see what happens in this process in terms of protecting our what I think is our superior answering service, and hopefully as we go through the process, we'll be able to maintain a focus on the quality, which I think is key, and that's what our firefighters and others are concerned about, is that we maintain our quality. Okay, clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 15313, granting a franchise to First Transit Incorporated by amending section 2 and subsections 13E1, 13F1, 13F2, 13F3 to extend the franchise for up to an additional 1 year, establishing maximum city financial participation for the 1-year extension, and establishing the management fees for the 1-year extension period.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Estrop.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to hear from Mark in terms of where we are with First Transit, obviously recommending an approval for an extension of 1 year. But Mark, what impact has COVID had on our transit system?
I have not seen the numbers recently. If Brian has Logan Cobbs on there, she may be able to comment on our ridership numbers. But from a financial standpoint, for the city's perspective, we have continued to operate within the budgets that were established by First Transit. Service has not been interrupted or impacted, really. We've had to obviously make some changes in how we deliver that service to make sure that we protect the drivers as well as the passengers. But the service has continued to move forward in the usual fashion, shall we say.
Okay, and it has.
Welcome, Logan. What can you
Thank
add?
you.
What can-
I can talk a little bit about ridership to Mark's point. So for fixed route in 2020, and these are June numbers, please note. In fixed route in 2020, we saw a total of 2,002 rides, whereas in 2019 we've seen 1,000. We saw 1,820. And then also for paratransit and dial-a-ride, we're seeing a difference of about 25% and 52%. So we have seen some decreases in our ridership.
But that hasn't impacted us financially. Mark, hasn't hit the city financially.
It has not from that standpoint. We typically budget $200,000 annually of city money as match for our FTA grants. We are on track to stay within the budget that we've committed to and use those grants. I might mention that about $1 in $5 comes from the city for the transit system. The rest is funded by FTA and also through ODOT using FTA dollars. But the large portion of our transit system is funded through grants. So, and we are staying within our budgeted numbers at this point in time.
Very good.
First Transit has been fiscally responsible. I think they've also done a good job as far as serving the citizens within the parameters that we allow them to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate
Hey,
the
Logan, not
information.
to put you on the spot, but one of the things, Mark alluded to, keeping our bus drivers safe and, healthy has been important in this. And I know Logan and our staff and First Transit staff is looking at doing some type of appreciation day for our bus drivers. I don't know, Logan, if you have any recent updates on that, but I think that is something to, we want to commend those drivers. They've been essential throughout this whole process. They have not missed a day because of the coronavirus. They have stayed operational, and I think we need to commend them at First Transit and their staff, their drivers, for the continued work they do. But we're also looking at having some type of appreciation event or day for those transit drivers.
So as it stands, the tentative date is August 10th, sometime in the morning, probably between 9 and 11. We're thinking about providing our drivers just with a boxed lunch, and possibly either Brian and or some commissioners, if they could just stop by. I think we're trying to limit actual interactions, but when they are getting off of their shift or simply going to lunch, if we could just say, hi, congratulations, but thank you, and we support you and things like that. So that is in the works. I don't have many other details other than that, but August 10th is that tentative date for that appreciation day. And we might have some sort of signage outside of Market Square bus station and on our buses and things of that nature. So more details to come there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I just wanted to comment. Thank you, Logan and Mark, for doing a great job with First Transit. And the other thing, that on the dial-a-ride and the paratransit, some effect might be from doctor's offices, where now you have to call when you get there before you can go in. So that might have a little bit of an effect on that. So that was my comment. Thank you.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the finance director to purchase 2,750 tons of rock salt for the 2020-2021 winter season from Cargill Incorporated De-icing Technology for an amount not to exceed $190,190 through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code.
Is there
So
a
moved, Esther.
second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cooperation agreement with the Springfield City School District Board of Education to assist the city and the Board of Education in creating and maintaining safe and orderly schools and confirming and approving services provided up to the passage of this ordinance.
So moved, Esther.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Providing for supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Esther.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Amending ordinance number 19238, authorizing the city manager to submit an application for financial assistance and accept a grant from the state of Ohio, Ohio Public Works Commission to obtain funding in an amount up to $801,409 for the McCride Avenue project, PID number 104831, and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved. Esther.
Second?
Second.
Chilton, second?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Comments or questions?
Yes, I thought we voted on this before. Why are we voting on this again?
Yes, Commissioner. So this is updating. There was an incorrect project name referenced in section 1 of the agreement between the city and OPWC. So this corrects that misreference to the wrong street. I will say the good news about this, so that this does bring the opportunity to let you know, originally round 34 of OPWC was not going to be or was not refunded as part of the original legislation passed by the state. And so we were kind of hanging in the balance on whether they would actually follow through with the funds for round 34, which the McCride Avenue project fell in. The state has now authorized the funding for round 34 projects. So we will be able to start moving forward again with the McCride project. But we were worried that we were going to have to put it on hold and wait until they would make a decision about round 34 funding. But fortunately, they have done that. So we'll be able to move forward with the project.
That's great news. Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 3 to the temporary indefeasible right of use metropolitan dark fiber agreement with Miami Valley Educational Computer Association Regional Council of Governments to extend the term of the agreement to June 30th, 2023, and increase the monthly rate, confirming and approving services provided from June 22nd, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Esther.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager and the chief of police to submit a grant application for the 2020 Burn Justice Assistance Grant Program Award to provide funding in the amount of $32,399 to purchase various safety technology equipment. Authorizing the city manager to enter into an interlocal agreement between the city and the Board of County Commissioners of Clark County, Ohio, for an amount not to exceed $16,199 in connection with the 2020 Burn Justice Assistance Grant and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Am I correct that we're submitting a grant hoping to get 32,000? And then is the county splitting this with us, Mr. Heck, or how is that working?
Yes, that is correct. And I've also pulled up Lee if he would like to speak to this specific grant, but this is an annual grant that we receive and split with the county on this. But Lee, if you want to explain more.
Yes, Commissioner, and good afternoon to everybody. Just to make it simple, we apply for the burn grant every year. We've had a long-standing agreement because ourselves and of course Clark County Sheriffs are the largest law enforcement agencies in the county, that we split it 50-50, which is also part of what the federal government wants. And what we do is we just switch back and forth each year as to who applies for it and which government system it goes through before we get to the end result and split those monies.
Very good. Thank you.
Well, Chief, before you go, what is the money used for? I see it says safety and technology equipment.
Yes, Commissioner. It's been used for a variety of things over the years. Like for this particular year, or last year, we have training equipment for officers. I don't know whether you're aware of it, but we go out and conduct like active shooter training and things like that in various companies and the schools. And so this year we updated our equipment for that. We've gotten stop sticks before. This year we're looking at upgrading our in-car cameras. So it's basically just various equipment like that. It's not used for weapons or ammunition or anything of that sort. It's more for training and just modernization of equipment within police divisions.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the rewind repair of a 3750 kVA three-phase substation transformer at the water treatment plant from Triac Electrical Service Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $176,170 through the Ohio Department of Administrative Services pursuant to Ohio's Cooperative Purchasing Act in accordance with the provisions of Section 125.04 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Esther.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into amendment number 2 to the agreement for consulting engineering services, Eastern Pressure District Water Upgrades, Phase 2 preliminary and detailed design, with Burgess and Nyepel Incorporated to shift funds among project tasks and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Esther.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes. Is this for the Bridge Water Development?
No, Commissioner, this is a larger project or a broader look of an upgrade to our water system out on the eastern part of town. Certainly there could be some benefits to the Bridgewater and if we see other housing development on the eastern side, but this is really this upgrade is needed as we continue to grow in our community, specifically from a commercial industrial standpoint around the Prime Ohio 1, Prime Ohio 2, I-70 corridor area. And so this upgrade is necessary for us continuing to be able to supply and meet the demands of companies that are prospective companies that are looking at our community, as well as companies that have already made the decision to locate in our community. This will help them and increase their pressure and the water capacity and supply out on the eastern part of our community. I wanted to note too, this is another great partnership between the city and the county as we are working with them on the location of the actual booster station that will be required. Will actually be located on Springview's property. So we've been able to work out an easement with the county to place that booster station on the rear, kind of on the rear property line of the Springview Government Center. So that's a great cooperation and working with us and allows us to commit the dollars to the actual infrastructure as opposed to having to acquire land. The county commissioners are giving us that easement at no cost.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a consulting agreement with Urban Fast Forward Limited for the Springfield Engaged Neighborhood Planning Process Development Phase 2 for an amount not to exceed $100,000 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estra.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, I was wondering if Shannon could talk about what all is involved in this. I know this is like the second phase, I believe.
Absolutely. We're very excited about this second phase contract. So we remember the engaged neighborhood planning process that was initiated in very late 2018 and took place through 2019. The first phase of that engaged process included an examination and study of data and redevelopment planning from Limestone Street to Center Street, Pleasant to Perrin. That was phase 1, but it was very, very apparent and very, very clear that those would not be the definitive boundaries of this engaged neighborhood. However, we had to stay within budget, and that's how we were able to, in partnership with many other community groups and the Housing Solutions Consortium, fund phase 1. Now we are very excited to recommend phase 2 with community development block grant funding that will not only provide us consulting services on the greater redevelopments of the area, including the service retail area work that we've been talking about along Limestone, but expanding that data collection and deep dive planning from Center Street to Yellow Spring Street, thus making the entire area from Limestone to Yellow Spring Street, Pleasant down to Johnny Lytle. And this project is much more than just planning in a vacuum and drawing pretty pictures. We have developed this contract in light of COVID. We call for engaged networking among neighbors within this area, but we also recognize that we may have to change at any moment and move to online platforms. So this contract does take all of that into account so that we do not lose any more time, engagement, or really honestly activity associated with this near Southwest planning. Also in this is implementation, guidance and oversight. One of the things that we are working on right now, I don't know why I'm echoing, I'm sorry, is if we are working hand in hand with students from the neighborhood, and they have been examining and learning about the deep heritage of the Gammon House and the Underground Railroad here in Springfield, but also as a placemaking and space-making understanding for the engaged neighborhood. These students are working with our staff and the consultants from Urban Fast Forward to design a street mural that will be painted at the intersection of Clark Street and Center Street, and will be influenced with signal quilt designs that are such a mainstay of the Gammon House. So if you can't tell, we are very excited, and I'm excited to represent that.
That's great. Thank you. I'm excited myself.
Shannon, I want to commend you and your staff for continuing to move this forward. All of this came out of the Housing Consortium work, and it's a great public-private partnership that continues to move things forward. Even in the era of COVID, it's made more difficult, but I just want to commend you and thank you for continuing to keep this going. I also want to strongly encourage you to make sure that among the developers, Larry Dillon and all of the other developers, Urban Fast Forward and the like, that we make sure their efforts are as coordinated as possible, that we're not pulling one direction by one developer and a different direction by the other. And I know you've had a lot of involvement in looking at the whole Southside Kroger thing. And I want to, again, encourage the sooner we can get that reopened in some fashion to better serve the citizens of the South Side of Springfield, the better. And I hope that continues to be a priority. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I'll add, this is a good segue with what Dave said. And certainly Shannon, myself, our team have had the discussion about connecting Larry Dillon and Dillon Corp with Urban Fast Forward about the work. And because we don't, Urban Fast Forward did a lot of legwork in putting their study together. And Larry's very excited to have the conversations with them, with Urban Fast Forward. He's had interactions and dealings with Urban Fast Forward in the past. So he's excited for that opportunity to kind of work alongside them with what they've already put together and prepared. I'll use this. I know, Dave, this is usually one of your questions at the end, but since we're talking about the Kroger real quick, you mentioned the speed and the importance of continuing to move this forward. And as you know, we're working with Larry Dillon and his team to start that community input and involvement process as quick as possible. Obviously, COVID impacts that, but we are actually having and hosting various meetings over the next 2 days on Wednesday and Thursday with various stakeholder groups, community groups, and so forth. But there's also a virtual discussion open for the public. So anyone in the general public that maybe not part of those stakeholder group meetings, we want them to have the opportunity, and Larry Dillon wants that. And so that will be Thursday, July 30th at 6:30 p.m. And it's going to be a virtual meeting on Zoom. And so if anybody has information or wants information, or maybe you want to submit your question ahead of time just to get your question in the queue, you can do that by emailing Logan Cobbs, who we had on earlier, but lcobbs@springfieldohio.gov, and they can get the Zoom information. They can get the Zoom information on our website, on Facebook, but they also can submit a question ahead of time if they want to. We'll have opportunity for questions during the Zoom presentation, but we know sometimes people want to make sure their question gets up there and they get their chance. So I just wanted to use that as an opportunity that those stakeholder and community engagement involvement sessions are starting tomorrow. And so those conversations are being had because of the importance and the time that is of an essence for this project as we move forward. So I wanted to use that as an opportunity. So
thank you, Mr. Heck. That's all super news. That's just wonderful news. If I could ask Logan to email me that information, I will post it on my personal Facebook page. We need to use every opportunity to get the message out, because I know so many people have an interest in what's going on and want to be part of the solution. And I think we should take advantage of that. So congratulations, well done, keep moving forward. We'll continue to all work on finding a solution. Thank you.
Logan, send it to all the commissioners. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about this project because, quite honestly, if we want to take it seriously, it's big. Yep. And I'm obviously very, very concerned about the Kroger replacement issue because that was our grocery store, and we really are concerned about it. But I also am concerned about Center to Yellow Springs, which is another part of the community, which is significantly different in form. Not a lot of, mostly residential. And so there's just different issues in different parts of that area. And I think we have to be careful that we don't end up emphasizing one at the expense of the other too much. So it's complicated, and we're going to stretch Shannon as far as she can be stretched to making this all work. So good luck, Shannon.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak to this? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Mr. O'Neill is here.
Do you want to vote on this? I know you came in the middle.
I know what it is, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
I vote
second.
yes. I vote yes too.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome,
Authorize-
Kevin.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an engineering agreement with Corda Nemeth Engineering Incorporated for the Mount Joy Waterline Replacement Project for an amount not to exceed $68,194.48 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission?
Yes, could somebody talk about this project? Because I was reading a lot of stuff on it. What's all involved and how long is it going to take?
Yes, I'll ask Chris to join us, but I will say this again shows the planning that goes, that is necessary as we do a neighborhood street program. So Mount Joy is one of the roadways that's planned for future paving here in the next couple years. And we have a water line that is within our top 25 main break areas. And so we are trying to be proactive because again, we don't want to throw money at bad and pave a roadway that we know that we're just going to be tearing up in future years because of poor infrastructure underneath that roadway. So Chris, if you want to speak to the project itself and also the timing of it.
Yes, to build upon what Brian said, not only is it in our 25 highest main break area, it is an undersized water line. It's currently a 6-inch cast iron water line. So this project will replace 3,800 feet of 6-inch water line with 8-inch ductile iron water line, which is our current standard. The project will stretch from High Street all the way south to Morton Drive. It will not only replace the water line, but will replace the water services to the house. So if there are any old lead or galvanized services in that area, they will get upgraded to copper. The survey will start now. We will design the project over the fall and the winter, bid it next spring, and then do construction next summer into fall. And that will have it ready for the following year when that roadway would be paved.
Thank you. That's a lot of work.
You'll see this item come up again when we go out for bid. The actual construction contract will be awarded by commission as well.
So this is just a design phase, is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue.
Yeah.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
The next two items have been added to the agenda. Reappointing Matthew R. Ryan to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Supporting the Davidson Flexibility for States and Localities Act and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? Mr. Estrop.
Mr. Heck, I was wondering if you could give us some more detailed information about this, please.
Yes. So as we know, at the federal level, there was legislation previously passed that provided money directly to communities of a certain size and over, or to states to allocate it to communities that did not meet that threshold. We fell in that latter category. And so there was approximately $1.2 billion that was provided to the state of Ohio to then redistribute out to the local levels of government. They have, the state of Ohio has acted, and they have passed through 350 million of those $1.2 billion to localities. And we have received those funds that can be used for COVID-19 related expenses. The US Treasury in the original bill or legislation approved at the federal level was very restrictive and spelled out specifically what items these things could be used for. What Davidson, and so I commend our representative that he has acknowledged and taken the necessary steps forward to relieve those restrictions, because what they have noticed is the overall impact beyond what they allowed the money or the original allotment to be used for and utilized for. So his bill that has been presented is being coupled with what is being deemed or called the next CARES Act or HEALS Act. And what's important about this is this would provide additional flexibility to states and localities on the use of this federal money that has been passed through. So this will allow us to look at potential things of utility revenue that we have lost throughout the period of COVID, and potentially looking at some revenue replacement on those utilities. So they are trying to be proactive in acknowledging the need at the state and local level, in providing us more flexibility with the dollars that they are passing down for assistance with COVID-19. So we're very supportive. The Ohio Municipal League, the Ohio Mayor's Alliance groups have all submitted letters and resolutions of support. And so I would ask Commission to also provide this resolution of support for this to be included in whatever the next bill is, if they call it a CARES Act, HEALS Act, whatever that ends up being, whatever form it takes. We could use the flexibility. This is important to us in our financial future, for them to provide us that flexibility in the use of those funds.
Great, thank you very much.
This is always a problem with federal funds, is they specify it so much that local communities aren't able to use it for the things they need the most. So I think this is a really good piece of legislation for us to support. And the Mayor's Alliance supports it. Anybody else? We'll call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items to come before us from commissioners?
Just like to ask my usual two questions. How are we doing in terms of city personnel and services, and how is the city doing financially?
Yes, I'll take the first one and then pass to Mark on the finance side of it. So many weeks I've been able to come to you and say that we have not been impacted or had employees on quarantine. We did have a larger number that we saw on quarantine. We actually had we did have our first positive case, confirmed positive case citywide a couple weeks ago. And so we had some of our members impacted or affected because of exposure due to that individual employee as well. I'm glad to say that employee has recovered and is doing good and is actually back in the rotation on work. So I'm happy for him and for that, because obviously the health and well-being of our employees is of utmost importance. We still have various members that are out on quarantine due to the exposures that we've had throughout the organization and the city. And so we continue to mitigate through that. We have not reached a level where it has impacted our service level in any degree. So we've been very fortunate in that regard that we have not had the surge that we're seeing in the community. We haven't had an internal surge in our own organization that has impacted our ability to provide the level of services come to be expected by our citizens. So I'm happy for that, but it's unfortunate that we still have members of our staff that have been impacted both directly by COVID and indirectly through exposures. So we continue to work through that. And as I stated, we still have so much momentum, so much community involvement, community engagement. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit unique. Even I spoke to the Kroger meetings that are over the next 2 days. We would have loved to host that in 1 or 2 large meetings, but we actually had to break them up. We have to do the public meeting by Zoom because, you know, if you get over 10 people, that's a concern. And so we're trying to balance the health needs of our community while also still balancing that we have projects that we need to move forward for the betterment of our community. So we have to look at the short term and the long term in those regards. But we're making progress. Again, I speak to all of our employees for their ability to adapt and adjust to the challenges presented. And work may seem a little bit different. We're doing different things to accommodate, but we're still, you know, kind of putting our heads to the ground and moving forward. And that's what it just impresses me with how quickly and admirably our staffs have stepped up and adjusted to those challenges we faced during this pandemic. So I love when I can report to you that we have nobody on quarantine and we don't have any positive cases. That's not the case this time, but we're mitigating through that as an organization and continuing to look for ways to still provide efficient, effective services in this changing climate that we're dealing with COVID-19.
Well,
The
certainly.
situation is still better than a number of other cities in Ohio.
Yes, very much so. So we've been very blessed in that regard.
Well, I just want to take this opportunity to thank all the city staff members who continue to get the job done for the city in this very different and difficult time. Your efforts are sincerely appreciated.
Okay, Mark, tell us the money situation.
Sure, I'd be happy to, commissioners. I'm beginning to sound a little bit like a broken record. We are still, our cash is still holding pretty good at this point. The report I got this morning was that we still have unencumbered cash in the general fund of $12.2 million. And our total cash is at about $71 million right now. It typically fluctuates from $68 to $70 million. So we're still in a nice cash position there. I will say that most of that is being driven by our staff, who is being very proactive in finding ways to not spend money. So we have, again, tried to control our expenses as best we can. I think we're doing a good job of it. I will be kind of holding my breath to see what the July numbers look like. I should have something early next week. If they're radically different than what I expect, I certainly will update you on that. And I was surprised at the middle of the month number. It was a little better than 2019. And I don't know whether that is a timing blip. We'll kind of sort that out at the end of the month. It's encouraging that we've done this well this far, but we have a long way to go. And, you know, with this kind of, I'll call it a second wave of COVID, it makes times even more uncertain. So we'll continue to be very careful with how we spend our money and manage with the resources that we've got.
Very good. Thank you. Well done.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Brian, some of the funds that have been set aside for COVID, I didn't know if you guys considered putting up some public signage to encourage safe distancing and you know, just supporting some of the masking and things like that. I've seen that in other communities. it's not that it's ever popular or anybody's excited about doing it, but it's maybe a good reminder. It may encourage people to be more vigilant and wearing masks. This is not going away, so it's not like we shouldn't have it out. So that's my thoughts. I didn't know if you guys were looking at that.
Yeah, so the health department and NTPRD have done some signage, kind of the 2x2 type signs that you see out during election season and so forth, that have been put out throughout the community about social distancing and so forth. One of the things that we're working right now on, and was a suggestion that Commissioner Estrop brought forward, was working with the county and the city and county, both combining some funds together that could go into purchasing a large pool of masks themselves. And so we're working through the Clark County EMA right now for them to purchase those. We could get somewhere in between 40 and 50,000 masks with the amount of money that the city and county would both throw in for that, which would obviously serve helpful in providing those to members of the community that maybe can't afford them or can't obtain masks. So I hope to have all of those logistics and details worked out over the next week or so, so that we have an idea of when those masks will be delivered and when those could and how those could be distributed to the public. So those are the types of things that we're looking at to push things. But granted, the sign suggestion, I may have a conversation with Charlie Patterson and see what his thoughts are and suggestions are about some additional signage throughout the community.
So
Go ahead, Joyce.
I was going to say, I saw in the paper that Logan had distributed masks and a few other things to small businesses. Could you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I will actually call her video up and let her describe it, but that was in partnership with DDC and Jobs Ohio. But Logan, you want to explain the toolkits?
Yep. So the business toolkits contained 100 disposable masks, 10 KN95 masks, and then a bottle of hand sanitizer. So these have been distributed last week and this week to our small businesses, which are considered businesses that have 100 employees or less, just to provide support to them. So we do have a few left. If anybody is still interested, they can call our office number, which is 937-324-7300, and ask for me. But it was very well received. And yeah.
Thank you, Logan.
Great job, Logan. That was a great idea. Building on what Commissioner Rue said, I'm wondering also if we could get at no cost some of those video spots that are running from, I think it's the Ohio Bureau of, it's a state agency, and I can't remember which one right now.
It's about employment, yeah.
Unemployment.
Economic development.
Yeah. And I was wondering if we could get some of those spots and run them on our community access channel. They're pretty good spots, and if we can get those or some others, as well as put them on our website and our Facebook page, I think any way and every way we can get out the message that the best way to deal with this is to mask, social distance, and wash your hands. I think we should make every attempt to get that message out there again and again and again, with the cooperation and assistance of our partners in the private sector.
Yep, totally agree, Commissioner. And we'll work, Val and our staff will work on putting pieces together like that. And
I would check with the Wine's office also, because they have been giving out free masks. Bureau of Workers' Compensation sent a package to all employers in Springfield that I know of, because I think there were 20 masks each in there, and there was no charge for that. So you might check with DeWine and see if there's any free masks running around Ohio that he could send us.
Anybody else?
Yeah, on another note, I noticed that like all the trails have been either coated or paved, or I don't know if the trails did national trails or the state or the city. I don't remember, but it's really nice, and all the things that we're working on within the city during this time, and just to see that touch where a lot of people are walking and using their bikes more than ever. It's just a nice uplifting touch to the city. So I want to thank Brian, the staff, National Trails, whoever else has been involved with that. I really appreciate it. It looks really good.
Yeah, I
Wasn't that a
received it.
grant? Wasn't that a grant, Brian?
Yeah, that was a grant. That was the use of transportation alternative funds that we were able to obtain from the state. And so what the application was a slurry seal. So a lot of people are familiar with crack sealing, but this was an actual slurry seal application. And we were able to do all the trail system except for the new section of trail, which is brand new and did not require it. Chris Moore, I don't know if you want to add, but it was a project that the service center bid and managed. And Chris, any thoughts?
No, the only thing I'll add, and I apologize if I'm late to the party. I had a citizen that had reached out to me. Anyway, the project has been very well received. Outside of a handful of complaints about the phasing, any phasing issues that came up were last minute decisions to get the project done quicker, because we had situations where it would rain on Villa Road and not rain on John Street. So we would quickly run down to John Street and do what we could. The users I've seen over the past couple weeks have been very appreciative of everything that happened. We hope it will keep those trails, and I mean that's a 10+ year treatment, so it was a very good thing to get done.
Brian, who was the company that did that? They did a heck of a job. They did a really nice job. They cleaned up.
I agree, Kevin.
And that is what they do. They specialize in a lot of these specialty treatments. Sometimes you'll see on the interstate highway where they'll do a 1/2-inch microsurface, and that's what this company does, and they're good at what they do.
I received
like I
several
said the last
compliments.
time. Go ahead, Rock. I'll get in a minute.
Oh, I was just going to say I received several compliments from people about the work. They were very pleased. The only concern that was brought to my attention was unfortunately people who walked on the surface or tried to drive on the surface, did drive on the surface, and that's unfortunate. But generally, the work was very well received and was given the thumbs up in terms of well done.
Well, it was well overdue from the state to come forward with a grant to make that happen. It was one thing to put them down, it's one thing to maintain them, because they don't last as long if you don't maintain them. And this is really well worth it. Well worth it.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
We'll move extra.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.